Your days aren't exhausting because you're doing too much. They're exhausting because you're doing everything the wrong way. And that is not an insult. That is a diagnosis, because there is a version of your exact life. Same job, same family, same hours. That feels completely different. Lighter, quieter, more in control. And the only thing standing between where you are now and that version is 8 tiny habits most people outside Japan have never once been taught. Stay with me until number 8, because number 8 is not a habit for your hands. It is a filter for your mind. And once you understand it, every other habit on this list will finally make sense at a level they couldn't before. But first, number 4 is the one I want you to pay attention to most. Because number 4 directly contradicts what every productivity expert, every wellness podcast, and every ambitious morning routine has been telling you. And it is the reason your afternoons feel the way they do. Let's begin. Before we get into the 8 habits, let's talk about why small things make such a large difference. Because most of us look for the big change, the life overhaul, the new schedule, the new system. And most of us have tried that enough times to know it never sticks past the second week. Japan has a different philosophy. It is called Kaizen, continuous improvement through steps so small they barely feel like movement at all. Not a revolution, a direction. And neuroscience has now confirmed what Japan has practiced for generations. The brain resists large, sudden changes and reads them as threat. But it absorbs small, consistent shifts without resistance, integrates them silently, and produces results that look wildly disproportionate to the effort that went in. 8 habits, each one almost absurdly small. Each one available to you today in the life you already have. Let's go through all 8. Habit number 1, 30 seconds in bed before you touch anything. Before you sit up, before you reach for your phone, before you do a single thing, you lie still for 30 seconds and locate one thing you are willing to look forward to today. Not grateful for, not excited about, just willing to look forward to. A cup of coffee made the way you like it, the podcast you started yesterday, a walk you've been meaning to take, something small, real, and genuinely yours. Now, here's why this 30 seconds matters more than you think. The moment you open your eyes, your body is already running a process most people have never heard of. Neuroscientists call it the cortisol awakening response. A natural, steep spike in cortisol, the stress hormone that your body produces in the first 20 to 30 minutes of waking. Not because anything is wrong, just to open your eyes, to pull you across the threshold from sleep into consciousness. That spike is normal. But here is what is not normal. Most of us, in that exact window while that cortisol is still climbing, immediately pick up a phone. And every notification, every headline, every unread message we absorb in those first minutes is processed by a nervous system already flooded with stress hormones. We are piling artificial stress on top of a natural chemical spike. We are hijacking the most sensitive version of our nervous system before it has even finished waking up. That is why anxiety arrives before you have done a single thing to deserve it. The 30-second practice of finding one thing to look forward to activates the brain's anticipatory reward system instead. A quieter, more sustained release of dopamine. Research from the University of California links this morning anticipatory emotion with lower cortisol throughout the entire day and measurably better mood regulation under stress. 30 seconds before anything else. That's habit number 1. Now, habit number 2 is something almost everyone does every morning, just not the way Japan does it. Habit number 2, make the bed, but understand why. This one is not about tidiness. Slow down here. Let this land. Because in Japan, making the bed is not a chore. It is the first act of intentional stewardship in the day, and the science behind it goes deeper than most people expect. Psychologists have documented something called the Zeigarnik effect, the finding that the human brain fixates on and remembers uncompleted tasks far more vividly than completed ones. An unmade bed is not just an unmade bed. It is an open loop, a small, unresolved tension your brain is carrying in the background all day, consuming a quiet fraction of your attention whether you notice it or not. By making the bed, you close the first loop of the day. Harvard psychiatrist Dr. John Sharp has described this kind of completion behavior as one of the most reliable ways to initiate momentum. Because once the brain registers one completed action, it is primed to look for another. You close the first loop, and something in your nervous system says, "We are someone who finishes what we start." Send that signal first, before the day has had any opportunity to challenge it, and you carry it with you for hours. That is what 4 minutes in the morning is actually doing. That is habit number 2. Habit number 3 is the smallest one on this list, 4 seconds, and it has one of the most disproportionate effects. Habit number 3, wipe the sink every time after you wash your hands, after you brush your teeth, after the dishes, every time. A small cloth, one swipe. The sink looks exactly as it did before you used it. Pause here, because most people hear this and think, that's about cleanliness. It is not about cleanliness. Here's what it's actually about. In Japan, there is a deep cultural respect for what is called mizumawari, the spaces around water. Kitchens, bathrooms, counters near faucets, and drains. In Japanese thinking, water areas are a reflection of the mind. Standing water, damp surfaces, spots left to dry, these breed stagnant energy. Not just in the room, in the person living inside it. The modern science arrives at the same conclusion from a different angle. Research from the Princeton Neuroscience Institute has shown that visual clutter and incomplete tasks in the immediate environment compete for the brain's attention on a subconscious level, consuming small amounts of cognitive resource continuously, below the threshold of conscious awareness. You are not noticing it, but it is there. The visual equivalent of apps running on a phone you forgot to close. A damp spotted sink is a tiny piece of unfinished business. In a home full of tiny pieces of unfinished business, the cumulative cognitive load becomes significant, not dramatically, gradually. The way a dozen open tabs slow a laptop. The processing that should be available for focus and calm gets redistributed to low-level disorder management instead. Wipe the sink. Close the tab. 4 seconds every time. That is habit number 3. Now, habit number 4. The one I told you to watch for. The one that contradicts what almost everything in modern productivity culture has taught you. Habit number 4. Rest deliberately in the middle of the day, not sleep, not a full nap. 10 to 20 minutes of intentional stillness, eyes closed, somewhere between noon and early afternoon, away from screens, away from tasks, a complete stop. Here is the biology that makes this non-negotiable. Your body does not run on a single daily energy cycle. It runs on what researchers call ultradian rhythms, biological cycles of roughly 90 to 120 minutes that govern your alertness, focus, and cognitive capacity throughout the day. At the natural end of each cycle, the brain wants a short recovery period before it rises again. Ignore those dips. push through with caffeine or discipline. And the cumulative cost arrives as a hard crash in the early afternoon, the kind where simple decisions feel heavy and creative thinking feels completely out of reach. Hana's midday rest is not laziness. It is the precise honoring of her ultradian rhythm, a hard reset timed to the biological dip that demands recovery before the next cycle of performance can even begin. A 2021 study from University College London confirmed that daytime rest, even non-sleep rest with eyes closed in a quiet space, produces measurable recovery in cognitive performance, equivalent to a significant portion of a full night's sleep. NASA research found a 20-minute rest period improves alertness by 100% in the hours that follow. The Western workday was built around factory schedules, not human biology. You are still living inside those schedules. Habit number 4 gives your biology its due. Habit number 5 is one most people do every day, entirely by accident, entirely without intention. And that is exactly the problem. Habit number 5, go outside every day on purpose, not for exercise, not to run errands, not with earbuds in and a destination in mind, just to be outside in whatever weather for at least 15 minutes without agenda. In Japan, this is called shinrin-yoku, forest bathing, being present in a natural environment and receiving what it gives you without trying to extract anything from it. The research behind it from Japanese institutions over the last 20 years is considerable. Time in natural environments measurably reduces cortisol, lowers blood pressure, and produces a quality of mental rest that indoor environments, however calm they may feel, simply cannot replicate. You do not need a forest. You need outside. The shift in light, the absence of a ceiling, the way sound moves differently without walls. These register in the nervous system as categorically different from the indoors, and they produce a recovery the indoors cannot offer. This is not a wellness trend. It is what your nervous system was designed to receive, and most of us, most days, never give it to ourselves. Habit number 5 is simply the decision that outside is not a reward for finishing your work. It is a condition for doing your work well. Habit number 6 is in the evening, and it costs nothing but 30 seconds of attention. Habit number 6, ask yourself one question before you sleep. Not what went wrong today, not what needs to happen tomorrow, not what you should have done differently. One question: what was one moment today I do not want to forget? It does not have to be significant. It does not have to be worth telling anyone, just one moment, however small, that you want to keep. Dr. Martin Seligman at the University of Pennsylvania has spent decades studying what he calls 3 good things, the nightly identification of small positive events. His research found that people who did this daily for as little as 2 weeks showed significant increases in well-being and significant decreases in depressive symptoms. And those effects persisted for months after they stopped, not because their circumstances changed, because their attention changed. And attention, directed consistently, reshapes what the brain registers as normal. The moment might be large. More often, it will be very small. The light through a window, a conversation that felt real, a meal that was exactly right. The size is irrelevant. What matters is that the day ends with your brain pointed one final time toward what was worth noticing. That is habit number 6. Habit number 7 is the one that keeps all 6 of the others running, and it is almost insultingly simple. Habit number 7, reset 10 minutes before bed, and only 10. Every evening before sleep, spend 10 minutes Not more, not less. Returning only what you can see from where you're standing to the state it was in that morning. Not deep cleaning, not organizing, not catching up. Just returning the visible surfaces to their beginning state. Here's what those 10 minutes are actually doing. A home that resets every night never accumulates the kind of disorder that requires a full weekend to undo. The dread that builds around an overwhelming home does not come from any single mess. It comes from accumulation. The slow layering of small things left undone, day after day, until the entire home starts to feel like a problem to manage rather than a place to rest. 10 minutes closes that loop before it opens. Every night. So there is never a Sunday you dread, never a Saturday that disappears into catching up, never a morning where you walk into a space that feels like it is already working against you. Habit number 7, and now, number 8. The one I told you at the very start was different from all the others. Habit number 8, the habit of intentional stewardship. Mottainai. I want to be clear about this one before we go any further, because it is easy to miss. This habit is not a task for the hands. It is a filter for the mind. And it belongs on this list precisely because without it, the other 7 are just 7 things to do. With it, they become something else entirely. In Japan, there is a word called Mottainai. It carries the weight of a full philosophy in a single sound. It expresses regret over waste, not dramatic regret, not guilt, just a quiet unwillingness to let something valuable pass unappreciated, unnoticed, unused. It is the feeling when you rush through a moment that deserved more than rushing. When you spend a day inside a life that is genuinely worth living and arrive at the end of it realizing you were barely present for any of it. Mottainai says, that is a waste. And not just of things, of time, of attention, of the small good moments a day contains, which are gone whether you notice them or not. Applied to daily life, Mottainai is the quiet filter that runs underneath all 7 habits on this list. It is why you protect those 30 seconds in the morning, because Mottainai says that first moment of the day deserves more than a phone screen. It is why you make the bed, because Mottainai says the space you live in deserves the 2 minutes it takes to close that loop. It is why you wipe the sink, rest in the afternoon, go outside, ask the evening question, and reset before sleep. All 7 habits before this one are expressions of the same underlying decision, that your time is worth using well, that your attention is worth directing well, that your days deserve to be noticed before they are gone, not in a grand or dramatic sense. Mottainai is never loud, in a quiet, consistent, everyday sense. In the 4 seconds at the sink and the 30 seconds in bed, and the 10 minutes before you close your eyes. Once you see it everywhere. In the way certain people move through their days without rushing. In the way certain homes feel lighter than their size should allow. In the way some people seem to get more out of the same hours everyone else has. Not because they are more disciplined, but because they decided somewhere along the way that their days were worth that decision. That is Mottainai. That is habit number 8. So here is everything in one breath. 30 seconds in bed to find one thing to look forward to. 4 minutes to make the bed and close the first loop. 4 seconds to wipe the sink and honor the space around water. 10 to 20 minutes of deliberate rest to honor your ultradian rhythm. 15 minutes outside on purpose. 1 question before sleep. 10 minutes to reset what you can see, and underneath all of it, Mottainai. The quiet decision that your days are worth doing well. None of this costs money. None of it requires a different life. Every single one of these 8 habits can begin inside the life you are already living today, with what you already have. Now, I want to hear from you, and I mean right now before you close this video. Look at this list. Which one of these 8 habits is the one your daily life is most missing? Is it the morning 30 seconds you have never once tried? Is it the afternoon rest you have talked yourself out of for years because the world told you it was lazy? Is it the evening question you have never asked because the day always ends on what went wrong instead of what was worth keeping? Tell me in the comments. Drop the number 1 through 8, because naming the one thing is the first step toward actually doing it. And someone else reading your comment might recognize exactly where they are in their own life and feel, for the first time, a little less alone in it. If this changed the way you see your day, even slightly, share it with one person in your life who is exhausted by a life that should not feel this hard. They might be 8 tiny habits away from a version of their days that finally feels like theirs. I will see you in the next one.